order. So you know, this is Karen, the Karen's Inquisitive Corner. This is Karen Stress Briscoe and Karen's Inquisitive. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. A wonderful day in the neighborhood. You be mine.
I am Karen Elizabeth Patton Jack's baby corner. I am Karen Elizabeth Patton Jack's baby girl.
We are coming live from Thailand.
This is Karen Elizabeth Patton. Hey, you guys, this is Karen Stress Elizabeth Patton Jack's baby girl.
Welcome to another episode of
Karen's Inquisitive Corner.
Karen Elizabeth Patton Jack's baby girl.
Thailand.
Welcome to Karen's Inquisitive Corner. I'm Karen Elizabeth Patton Jack's baby girl. All of us have something in our bodies that we would want to change, or we would want to make better, or we want to take away, or have a surgery, or have this removed, or lose weight, change our hair color, whatever. We can always find something on our bodies that we can improve, that we would like to improve. Now, when it gets, and that's okay, because, that motivates us to lose weight, to exercise, to eat right, maybe go to the doctor, maybe do something that makes you happy, to your body. But sometimes people can take it a little bit far. Sometimes people can actually get obsessed with areas on their bodies that they feel is not right. Okay, areas on their body that they feel is a flaw, or maybe a birthmark. They were born that way, or it's not supposed to be that way. And so what happens is, whereas one person may say, I'm a little heavy, I'm gonna try to lose some weight or something like that, another person actually becomes obsessed with it, and may become anorexic or something like that. That's something I had talked about in the corner. I need to come to the corner and talk to you all about that. So dysmorphia actually refers to a mental condition that characterizes this person that perceives that their body has all these flaws and that it's defected and it needs to be fixed. And they become obsessed with it until it just goes into a mental illness. Okay. And that mental illness is called dysmorphia. Okay. So let's talk about this a little bit. A lot of people, look at models and look at this and look at that, and they're like, I want to be like them, I want to look like them. But I really think, and I'm really excited that I've kind of seen that stereotype change. I went to I think it was Ulta or Sephora somewhere looking at makeup, and so I saw this beautiful, heavy set, dark skin, beautiful Black woman on this big picture in there. And she just looked beautiful. And I was so surprised because I'm used to seeing, really, really skinny people in these pictures, and especially not a lot of people that look like me that aren't size 8 or 10. But you're seeing more of that now, more models, more people really embracing their bodies and embracing who they are and being happy about it. But you still have this select few that actually becomes obsessed with it. Okay. And it comes into a mental condition. So what really happens is their appearance, like I said, is just not they're just not happy with it. They feel like it is a flaw. First of all, God makes no mistakes, but they feel like it's a flaw. It could be like their skin, it could be their hair, it could be their nose, their weight, or anything. It could be their legs, or, someone who's anorexic, they go to the biggest part of their body and they'll say, I'm fat here, which may be an arm or a thigh, or something like that. We'll talk about that a little later. And so what happens is this person looks in the mirror, any mirror, walking by a mirror, and just stare at this preoccupied flaw or this flaw that they think that they have. So in these pictures that you see now, sometimes people will, do something to their skin. They'll like lighten their skin or maybe even darken their skin, and they'll have a lot of surgeries. We've seen people like before and after, we're like, who is this person? We've seen people, we can Google people that have had hundreds of surgeries on their breast, on their bottom, on their stomach, and their shoulders. Some people even removing ribs to make themselves smaller, nose jobs, chin jobs, lip jobs, everything that you can think of, to try to improve it, take away, add to it, look like somebody else. We've seen people that are trying to make themselves look like a human Barbie doll, and they're actually obsessed with it. And so this condition could actually come from, anything tragic that happened in their life, some type of anxiety or depression prior. But even when you have this condition and you think that you have all these flaws, you're going to inherit anxiety and depression and other mental health complications like obsession compulsion or something like that. We've talked about that in the corner. Now, there's a lot of ways to treat this because, like I said, it is a mental illness. And, sometimes we'll say, that person is crazy. Why are they having all these surgeries? Why are they spending millions and millions of dollars to change their body? Why? And they look worse now, with all the changes than they were beautiful, at first in their own skin. Well, it's because they're having a mental issue. Something is going on with their brain and they've just gotten obsessed with it. Now, a lot of times we've talked about in the corner, a lot of different illnesses, and I have been, and I'm sure you have been really surprised because a lot of these illnesses, doctors don't even know where they started. They guess. They take a hypothesis, an educated guess of where they started or where they come from, but they really can't pinpoint and say, this is exactly what happens. This is exactly where cancer comes from. Don't do this, you're going to get cancer. All those type things. And this is another illness that falls into that category. Now, one of the treatments for this is psychotherapy and medication. Psychotherapy is going to be counseling, behavior modification. And I know I've said a lot about behavior modification. Behavior modification is actually when you just modify your behavior. You change the way you behave into another direction. So for example, if a person with this condition, body dysphoria, if they want to go to the doctor to have another surgery, then they would do something else instead of going to the doctor. I don't know, maybe go on a trip, maybe go on a cruise or something, or maybe call a friend that would talk them down and remind them how beautiful they are. So that is called behavior modification. When you modify your behavior that may be causing you this anxiety or depression. I just thought about that because I know I say behavior modification a lot. Also, cognitive behavioral therapy. This is also, often like psychotherapy that I talked about, cognitive, what you're thinking, what you're doing. But it really helps these individuals to identify and challenge that negative thoughts, the negative beliefs that they think that they have with their bodies. Okay, and trying to fix that. So they start cognitive, what you're thinking, because that's where it starts from. And they work there to try to change that thought process, that you're not thinking negatively about yourself. Sometimes just the psychotherapy works, but sometimes you use the psychotherapy with medication, of course, to treat the anxiety and also the depression. So in looking at this, You're going to treat anxiety with those type of medications, depression with antidepressive medications, and they have been proven to work a lot in situations like this. Also, when you look at this, anybody can actually go through this. You would think, well, what age do people go through this? This can affect teenagers, middle age, and adults. Okay, it's not really a certain age. Now, usually it starts with teenagers in the teenage years. You know, when your hormones are changing and you're going through that, a lot of times it starts with teenage years, but adults can also go through this. And like I said, we've seen it on television. We can Google it to see how people are trying to be like a Barbie doll. Or, you know, I saw on Facebook or something, I was up one night and I saw this man and he had transformed himself into like a lizard. And from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, he was tattooed. He had cut his tongue in half, so he would have two little pieces. So it was like a lizard or snake or something. And he had his eyes and everything was like black. He even had his eyeballs, like the white part, was also black. But he had just transformed his whole self into, you know, relating to this animal, you know, and he felt like that he was, you know, this animal. So that would also be some type of mental illness when you really think about it. This condition also affects men and women. I know the first thing a man would say is, you know, this is a woman wanting to change their bodies, you know, and all of this. But no, it affects men and women. Okay. It's not huge. You know, it's not like hundreds of thousands of people that go through this, but it is a fair percent. When you look at of the general population, it's about 2%. But we're talking about a population of millions and millions and millions and millions of people. So when you look at it when you look at 5 or 6 people, no, don't seem like that much. But when you look at millions and millions of people, even at 2%, that is a lot of people. Now, a lot of times, as I said earlier, people that actually go through this usually will have an initial history of depression or history of anxiety disorders. And so sometimes that can trigger it, and then it goes to relating to their appearance and how they look in their appearance and trying to change that to make it better. And really it's kind of, they use a lot of energy with their appearance and trying to fix their perceived flaws, but that's not really what the issue is. That's not really what the issue is. It started with depression, with anxiety. Sometimes it also starts with when people have been abused, you know, as children. When people have been abused as children and they want to change, you know, their image. You know, I've shared with you all when I was molested as a child and younger, I used to want to be ugly. I used to want to be ugly because I felt like if I was ugly, then men wouldn't look at me. Nobody would look at me. So I didn't want anybody to tell me, you know, how cute I was or how this I was or how that I was, because I wanted to be ugly. You know, and that was my way of kind of shielding myself or putting up a wall that if I'm ugly, you know, I won't have to worry about this. I'm only worrying about this because I'm cute. This is only happening to me because I'm cute, you know, or perceived to be cute or told to be cute or whatever, you know. And so if I'm ugly, it won't happen, you know, it won't happen to me. So, you know, we talked about a teenager. As a teenager, as a child, you think and you act like a teenager and you act like a child. So I really hope you all learned something today. This was very, very interesting to me that people can actually go through this. I figured when I would see people that would just transform their nose, and I mean, they just look totally different than they look, that it had to be some type of insecurities, with their self. But I just want to tell each one of you, you are beautiful. It does not matter what size you are. It does not matter what color you are. It does not matter what kind of hair you have, what birthmark you have, or whatever. You are beautiful in your own skin. So if you're ever around somebody and they talk about this flaw, that flaw, this flaw, that flaw, please remind them you are what God made you, and you are beautiful in your skin. You are beautiful in your skin. You don't have to worry about anybody else telling you you're beautiful. You have to know that you're beautiful here, and that will come out of you and how you act and how you walk and how you feel and how you communicate and how you carry yourself. It's not about what anybody else thinks, and it's not about being like anybody else. It's just about being yourself and being beautiful in your own skin. So when you walk in Walmart, or you walk in Kroger, or you walk in the mall, or you walk in the park, you walk like you are the most beautiful thing there, because let me tell you, you are. You all have an amazing day. And please do like and share. Let me know what you all want to hear in the corner. And I love you, and I'm so glad to see you. And I will see you next week. Mwah. Bye-bye.